You are listening to the Cattle Call podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call Podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am Jim, your lovable and charming host, and with me, as always, is my partner.
Did he say lovable?
He did. And charming.
And charming?
Don't forget charming. Very, very charming. People are saying I'm very charming. As a matter of fact, I heard it just on the show just a few seconds ago.
Oh, this is Rocco with my delusional partner.
Rocco, who is neither lovable nor charming, and that's why we make you all suffer through the engineering joke of the week. Okay, Rocco, ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right, what's the difference between a chemist and a chemical engineer?
I don't know. What's the difference?
About $10K a year. There you go. Terrible. Just terrible. All right, folks. So we have a guest with us today. We have Tim Yarris, the Civil 3D product manager for Autodesk, is here with us once more. So welcome back, Tim. It's always great to have you on the show, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me back. It's been a while, and it's great to be back again.
See?
Hey, Tim, if you say he's lovable, I'm just walking, all right?
Well, I was holding my tongue to not pull like the face for podcasts kind of jokes, but I'm going to apply that to myself. So how's that?
Yeah, you'd be right on that one. There's a reason why we just do this as audio. So it doesn't make me less lovable. I mean, you see like some of them really ugly little puppies with their, what are they, Shar-Peis, the wrinkly face. They're very lovable, just ugly. Just like me. All right. So the plan today, other than abusing me, is that Tim is going to give us a kind of a year-end wrap-up on the 2024 releases of the Autodesk Civil and Site programs, right? And a little bit on, what other cool things are happening in the Autodesk space right now. But before we get into that, let's give Tim a chance here to kind of introduce himself to newer listeners who haven't heard him on here the 1,000 times we've dragged him in before. So, Tim, why don't you tell folks a little bit about your background and what your role is over at Autodesk?
All right, thanks. I'll do my best. So my name is Tim Yarris. I'm the product manager for Autodesk Civil 3D, and so I'm basically kind of responsible for the overall Civil 3D product as a whole. So we have a number of different other kind of people on my team who kind of oversee different aspects of the product from like the business side. So like there's a guy who oversees like rail related stuff, and there's another guy who oversees civil structures and bridges and that sort of thing, and so on and so forth. But I'm kind of the guy that kind of tries my best to keep everybody somewhat happy and make sure that all the different disciplines within Civil 3D are really well represented. And so that's a fun job, but it's great though, because I mean, it's like I kind of own the building of the overall product roadmap. And then also I spend a ton of my time just talking to customers and just making sure that we have a product that's as solid and suits as many different civil engineering workflows as we possibly can. And also doing my best to try to explain to people that we can't possibly make everybody happy. So I sometimes take some arrows on things that we can't do, but it's a great place to be. And I've been with Autodesk on the Civil 3D team since 2006. So that hopefully tells you it's a good place to be. It's a good gig. So I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. And I think you do a good job at it too. So, all right. So I tell you what, let's start with the latest releases of the 2024 versions of the Autodesk Site and Civil mainstays, right? Civil 3D and InfraWorks. And I believe that we're on 2024.2 for Civil 3D and 2024.1 for InfraWorks. Is that correct?
Yep, you got it.
All right, I got something right today. Good.
You're on top of everything.
I'm on top of things today. So, look, in general, I am a huge fan of keeping active with and current with interim releases of the product that you're working on. And I know that there are a lot of folks out there who delay doing their upgrades, right? To every other year or so that they're always a version behind, and that's fine, right? But I always recommend that people keep current with those interim releases because that is where the developer is going to go in. They're going to fix issues, right? Iron out any workflow problems, and they're going to add enhancements to the tools that you're already using. Right? And I think it's really important that you always have the latest and greatest in place there. So Tim, what are, in your mind anyway, what are the most important updates to Civil 3D with this new, the new releases, and what are kind of the big issues that your team's resolved here?
Yeah, so we actually just re-released Civil 3D, the 2024.2 update, which, that's got some great new enhancements to things like the connector for ArcGIS and for Project Explorer, which I know is a popular tool with you folks, and then collaboration for Civil 3D and a bunch of other things, and then a ton of just different, just overall bug fixes just to increase the stability and the performance of the overall product. So let me explain a little bit why I said we re-released Civil 3D 2024.2. So we initially posted the 2024.2 update in early October, and then shortly after we posted it, the dev team identified a critical regression issue that forced us to pull it down from everybody's accounts so that the issue wouldn't be propagated onto more customers' environments. Then over the next couple of weeks, almost 2 weeks to the day, we fixed the issue and we ran many retests of that whole new build to make sure. No sleep
during that 2 weeks, but yes, there were many tests.
Yep. And you talk about, I mentioned earlier about taking arrows when things are not always what people want. I took a bunch of arrows that week, and but that's okay. It's part of the job. But we retested the heck out of it and just really wanted to make sure that the quality was as solid as it could possibly be. And then part of that is, like, while taking arrows, got a bunch of customer feedback, and a bit of customer feedback that we got during that thing is we learned that the old update couldn't be uninstalled from Windows 11, which is kind of a big deal because that would have forced people to basically uninstall the entire Civil 3D 2024 in order to clear it off the machine, then reinstall 2024, and that's just not something we want to force people to do. So based on that feedback, we tweaked the installer for the new update so that it would install over top of the old one for those folks that had actually downloaded and installed it while the old broken version was out there. But now that that's behind us, we're reevaluating all of our dev processes to make sure something like this is far less likely to happen again in the future. It wasn't our proudest moment, but we're doing our best to treat it as a learning experience and make ourselves better. So that's kind of the story behind that.
Cool. And I love that you just take ownership of it, right? And you'd be like, yeah, hey, things happen. And that's the reality of life that sometimes I think in modern society we forget, right? These are people working really hard to put out the best product they can. And sometimes it's not going to be perfect, and exactly. I think it's great that you guys, recognize and say, yeah, okay, we'll improve it and it'll be better next time. I love that.
Yeah, definitely appreciate you seeing that, because it's people think of Autodesk as this big faceless robotic corporation that, they don't care. They're just cranking out trying to make money, but it's like, we really care, and we don't want to make people's lives harder and things like that. But that's kind of where we just wanted to make sure that we took our time to make sure that we got it right. We fixed the initial issue very quickly, but we wanted to really spend our time grinding out and making sure that we tested the heck out of it to make sure that something like this didn't happen again. So, we're human. Things happen.
Absolutely. All right. So, of course, right? We've talked about this many times on the show, right? Civil 3D it's just the king of the design, the site design space. And that's why we always start there with Tim. But it is not the only important tool in the civil site space that Autodesk offers, right? Tools like, InfraWorks and Recap, which also kind of fall into Tim's area of expertise, are fast growing, but still, to my mind, dramatically underutilized in a lot of firms, right? So Tim, I'm going to ask you pretty much the same question again, but in this answer, let's focus on those products, right? What's new in InfraWorks and Recap in these releases?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a bunch of great stuff in InfraWorks. The 2024.1 update, we've got things like support for parametric bored tunnels, support for more flexible grading transitions around bridges and tunnels, and we've got a whole new updated watershed analysis tool. And then on the recap side, we've been doing a bunch of work on classification of point cloud data, decimation of point clouds, and further refining the workflows that we recently introduced to do things like extract linear strings from a point cloud that's stored on the cloud, and then bring only those strings into Civil 3D. I mean, all in all, it's all about just not overloading your Civil 3D drawing with massive amounts of point cloud data, and really letting you bring only what you need into the DWG from the point cloud. So we're doing our best there.
Nice. Nice. And those are important things. We're seeing more and more, like, on our own side, right? We're getting more and more into the, the scanning and the point cloud data, and, we're working with Matterport and some of the laser scanners, and we're seeing the huge benefits that you guys are putting in there. So I'm a big fan of what you're working on.
Yeah.
All right. So Rocco, let's wake you up. So when you're working with our clients, do you find, kind of talking in this vein, right? Do you find that most people have made the transition up to the 2024 release, or for whatever product they're working in, or are there still a lot of folks out there who are still hanging a year or two back on the version that they're working in?
Yeah, it's a wide mix, as you can imagine, right? I mean, I do find that more and more folks are more current, right? I mean, maybe 2022, 2023. I'm not seeing as many that are still on, 2018 and 2019, or even 2008. So that's a plus. But the industry's so busy that it's hard for everybody to just be 100% up to date. But they do see the value in that much more than I think they did years ago. And I think it's for two reasons. One, they realize, hey, we're putting out money for this every year, and part of the reason why we're doing that is to be able to stay current. And then the other reason is that there have been some very healthy improvements to the products over the past couple of years, particularly for Civil 3D.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And like I said, I think people are starting to trust a little bit more when, like you said, you got Tim saying, hey, even when we make a misstep, we're going to pull it back, we're going to fix it, we'll get it back out as fast as we can and take ownership of it. So I think people are getting a little bit more trusting of the year-over-year updates. So I think we see more folks moving forward, which I think is a great sign. So let's shift gears here a little bit. So, we're recording this podcast at the end of October, which means that, Autodesk University is only a few weeks away. And since, it's still the leading conference for the design world out there, I figured I'd put Tim on the hot seat here today and get him to give us a little bit of a preview of what the show's going to look like this year. And, in particular, I'm hoping that he can, recommend some key classes or really good events for the civil survey folks who are listening in. So, Tim, what's the big plan for AU this year? What do you think folks are going to see the biggest benefits from attending?
Oh man, let's see. So I mean, first off, I'm super pumped to be back in Vegas again. I mean, it's been a few years since we've been there, so I think it's probably going to feel a little bit like homecoming. So it's a good time. So I mean, there's a ton of great classes on the infrastructure products. So I mean, lots of great stuff on Civil 3D, which is, I mean, my focus. Lots around collaboration, everything with the construction cloud and the collaboration for Civil 3D, how that connects into it. Tons of stuff on the structures workflows that span Civil 3D, InfraWorks, and Revit. Really, I spend the most of my AU week in customer meetings where we give key customers a bit of insight on what's coming in the future of our products, and then we listen very carefully to their feedback on what's most important to them. A lot of these are formal meetings for very large enterprise customers, but we also have a bunch of just kind of random ad hoc meetings with individuals, either there's these ad hoc meeting tables on the lower level of the Venetian. We run into people all the time at the expo hall and the halls between classes, and even over drinks and stuff when we bump into folks after hours. And that's actually probably my favorite part of AU, is just bumping into random people in random places at random times and just chatting about whatever happens to be on their minds. It's really, really fascinates me to hear firsthand how people use our products and the passion they have for making our products even better. So it's just a great time. I mean, there's just nothing like it. It's great to be able to have like the reach of like a podcast or a webcast like this, but it's so much, it's just awesome to just be face to face with people and just chatting, just meeting people face to face and just talking. It's just a great thing.
Yeah, I agree. It's always a good time. You meet so many really interesting people doing stuff that you never even considered before. It's always really fascinating what the folks you find out there. So, all right, I tell you what, let's take a quick break to hear from today's sponsor, and when we come back, I wanna get a little bit into Autodesk's future planning process with Tim, right? And maybe a little bit of information on how our listeners can get involved with helping them plan out the future releases. So, all right, stand by, folks. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. Hey, everybody, it's Jim and Rocco from ZenTech Consultants, and I want to talk to you guys today about our new Zen Pipe for Civil 3D pressure networks. Look, the Civil 3D pressure pipe system is a powerful tool set, but anybody who's ever used it is going to tell you the same three things. One, it needs more pipes and fittings and tools to use in the real world. Two, those parts need to be much easier to work with and label. And three, nobody has the time or energy to build custom pressure pipe parts on their own. And that's why we've developed ZenPipe for Civil 3D pressure networks. All right, it's a catalog of over 600 plus pipes, fittings, appurtenances, and everything you need to intelligently design and label and work with your pressure network. So Rocco, tell folks how they can find out more about our ZenPipe tools.
Yeah, hit up our website at zentechconsultants.net. That's ZENTEK consultants.net. Give us a call at 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email at sales@zentechconsultants.net.
There you go. ZenPipe for Civil 3D pressure networks. If you work in the civil site world, you need this tool. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. We're talking with Tim Yarris of Autodesk about all the important happenings there as we kind of close towards the end of this year. And in this half of the show, I want to take a bit of a forward look into the types of things that we can expect as we move toward, next year's version and even beyond that. And I also want to get a bit of info from Tim on how people listening can get involved in helping to plan out the tools and the processes that his group is going to be working on or focusing on. So Tim, let's start with some of the stuff that you are already working on, right? What are your big focus areas for your team coming on the next release or two for the civil space?
Well, on the Civil 3D side, over the past few releases, we've made a whole bunch of improvements to just the overall performance of Civil 3D and doing our best to reduce the number of picks and clicks that are just involved in common workflows, especially as they relate to like corridor modeling. It's a whole lot of picking and clicking involved in creating and editing corridors. So moving forward, we're continuing that work in a couple different ways. And then for performance, we're really doing some deep digging into the surface and corridor objects to make both of those objects a lot more performant, and especially in how they're built and then subsequently rebuilt. On the workflow front, we are revisiting something that we enhanced a few years ago to make it even better. So it's just all about kind of completing workflows and that sort of thing. So if you remember a few releases ago, we added the ability to use a feature line as a corridor baseline. And this was great, especially for like land development workflows where you might use a feature line as a baseline for maybe a curb in a parking lot. But when you consider that a parking lot typically has a ton of curbs in it and a ton of feature lines that are making up those curbs, adding those feature lines one at a time is super tedious. So, I mean, we're, again, super picky and clicky workflow. So we're working on that to make it even easier to just grab a whole bunch of feature lines and string a curb subassembly around them in one single operation. We did this based on like a customer request. And so the initial customer request behind this one was they saw this workflow that was clunky, and they said, hey, we'd like you to open up the API for creating a corridor with a feature line baseline, open up the API so that we can basically create a custom tool to do this ourselves. And so we added the API in 2024.2, which is out now, but we wanted to take it a step further because it was a great point. I mean, it was just too many picks and clicks involved in that whole workflow, and we really wanted customers to get the advantages of just being able to use a feature line as a quarter baseline. So we just decided to just work on making that part of the Civil 3D workflow so that all of our Civil 3D users will be able to take advantage of it without the need for making their own custom tools and so that sort of thing. And then maybe considering with this, and then also kind of going back to your point about kind of what are like the next release or two, as far as you're probably thinking about annual release, like what would maybe Civil 3D 2025 look like? That's a great question. But we're also starting to kind of do some considerations about basically what do customers that are on 2024 need. It's a fairly well adopted release, and so basically what we're doing is we're at least considering the fact that like customers might be staying on 24 for a bit, because it's kind of funky that a lot of customers have this whole even year release cadence where they adopt like in 2020 and then 22 and 24.
Come on, you know about the odd year curse. Come on.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. So I mean, we're doing our best to try to like build out some of these things and like not keep all of the fancy new toys in just the new releases and stuff like that. So it's there are no guarantees or anything like that, but we're at least considering the fact that like some of the things that we're working on might fit into they might have some legs to kind of fit into an earlier release. And so it's a tough thing to do to kind of port things back, but at least it's under consideration. So just keeping that in mind.
Nice. So I love that you're working on, corridors for parking arenas and being able to bring that workflow down. That's the one area where everybody goes, yep, nope, not using corridors in there. Too much work.
Yep.
So, that alone, boy, that'll make it worth the price of admission right there.
I hope so.
So I tell you what, one of the things that I really do like about the way that Tim runs his group is that, we've been working on it for years now. So he focuses really heavily on, he's even said it here in the show today, right, on getting customer input into their development process. And it's a huge positive in the success of Civil 3D, I think. And I'll be that stick in the mud here, and I'll say that, that particular approach isn't something that Autodesk as a company has always been known for over the years. But Tim, I think, has put major effort into that approach, right? And one of the ways of getting this feedback is at what we call the futures events that they run every year at Autodesk University. So Tim, can you give us a little bit of info on what those futures events are and how people can get invited to or register for them at AU and even beyond?
Yeah, you bet. So I mean, first, thanks a million for kind words. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, in all sincerity, I really do appreciate customer feedback. I mean, the good and the bad, we get it all from all sorts of different channels, but I mean, we listen to it and we appreciate it, and we try to do better. But as far as the AU events are concerned, so we have, over the course of the week, we have a whole bunch of these small, private, invitation-only product team events where we get a small-ish group of customers into a room and we work through a focused topic that we are looking into enhancing for the future. These events are really great because they give customers a chance to interact with each other and understand the challenges that their peers face, maybe in other disciplines or in other countries and stuff like that. And they all kind of have the common understanding that while they might work differently, they might do different things for different types of projects, they all kind of have the overall goal of they want our products to be better. And we totally appreciate that. And these events are all super valuable to us because we have folks from the development teams at these events, and they can hear directly from our customers about how they use our products, and more importantly, how they want to use those products in the future. And that information, again, this is directly to people on the development team, the people writing code and that sort of thing. It's not filtered through me or sales guys or anybody like that. So it's super important for us to have the developers talking directly to the customers. I think probably our favorite events at AU, as far as the product team events are concerned, is the big infrastructure futures briefing that we have every year. Years ago, this one used to be on Tuesday evening every AU, and before the event started, we'd have drinks for everyone, and it was a party. It's a little different now. but it's still the best part of the week for us. We still get a few hundred people into a big room, and the leadership team of the civil infrastructure products gets up there, and we share what's coming with the products, both in the coming year and in years further down the road. It's just a great way for us to get customers excited about the future and just mingle with them afterwards to get their direct feedback. And then as for how to join these events, if you're going to AU, we've been plugging these events like crazy during our weekly webinars that we host for participants of our Infrastructure Futures program. What that program is, it's our ongoing beta and feedback channel where customers give us direct feedback on our plans and help us validate what we are actively working on for future versions of the products. And if anyone's interested in joining that program, you can just go to feedback.autodesk.com and find Infrastructure Futures on the list of available opportunities, and then you're good to go.
There you go. Nice. So Rocco, in this vein, right? How important is it to clients of ours, right, to have a voice in the development process, for whatever software system they're using? Are a lot of them looking for ways to kind of help steer tool development, or are they just so busy that they're just going to take whatever, gets thrown at them in the next release?
Yeah, it's all over the map, right? I mean, you can't complain if you have an open avenue or multiple open avenues to be able to give feedback and input into future growth, and you're not doing it, right? And we're hearing it over and over again here that Autodesk has that door open. So you got to give the feedback, or otherwise don't complain.
Yeah, fair enough.
You have your chance,
That's Rocco's way of telling everybody, put up or shut up.
Kind of, sort of.
on that, like we have a guy who used to be on our team his kind of phrase always stuck with me. It was like, how did it go? It was something along the lines of, you only have to report the defects that you want fixed. It's like, we can't read minds. You have to, like, if you want us to work on something, we absolutely have to tell us. So we want to hear it all.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I tell you what, I have to be honest here and say to all our listeners that out of all of the times, and there's been a lot that I've been out to AU, and all of the years that I spent working for, large design firms in that Autodesk Civil site space, I never really actually took the time to be part of any of these future planning events and tools. And having said that, I am actually curious as to how they work. Right, in the real world. And I can't, of course, think of a better guy to ask than Tim. So Tim, how does an event like that generally run, right? And what type of things are going to be on the discussion table for like site and drainage, et cetera, in this year's events?
Yeah, so the smaller events, the futures events, they're generally about customers interacting directly with the folks from the dev teams and each other, like I mentioned a couple seconds ago. These are all about everyone coming together, talk through their challenges, and provide feedback on how we can make the products better and address those challenges. So we have a bunch of these sessions that are happening that the product team's running, scheduled for topics like, there's a couple around quarter design, there's one around Dynamo, Project Explorer, Rail, and a whole bunch of other ones. I will drop a hint that we'll be talking about some big things that are coming in Civil 3D related to drainage at AU. We've gotten some, it's an area that we hadn't touched a great deal over the last few years, but drainage is getting some significant love in the coming year on the Civil 3D side. And so, I'm personally leading our drainage initiative, so I'm really, really excited about the topic, but I kind of have to stop before I spill too much before AU.
Start blowing up the safe harbor limits. Don't do that. We all get in trouble.
Exactly. So yeah, come to AU and you'll hear more.
There you go. Okay. All right. So personally, I won't be going to AU this year. And that's become, Tim's not cool. He never invites me to hang out at like the cool kids table and all the secret meetings, right? Where you have to have your Autodesk decoder ring to get in. He never invites me. And I know that a lot of our listeners actually can't take the time to get out there either, right? The truth is, in this current environment, right, we are all short-staffed. We are all overworked, right? So a week in Vegas, while it sounds great, it just isn't in the cards for a lot of us. And but that doesn't mean that you can't still be part of the AU process and get your input into that future planning process. So, how about that, Tim? If folks aren't getting out to AU, how do they keep up with some of the AU events? And more importantly, how do they get involved and stay up to date with that futures planning process?
Yeah, great question. But I mean, first, you guys have an open invitation to all of our super secret AU events without decoder rings or handshakes or anything.
Oh, cool.
I mean, yeah, you guys should be live streaming a catalog call from AU. Just saying.
It's actually funny you should mention that. For the very first time, we're doing that at a local show next week, just as it'll be our first live broadcast. So we'll talk to you about doing it with you and Ramesh next year at AU and see what kind of fun we can have.
Do it. We'll definitely make time for that. That would be a blast. But for yourselves and anyone else who's not able to make the trip to Vegas this year, which totally get, it's a huge commitment. I mean, especially I'm curious to see how it's going to go, because it's like it stops the day before the F1 race in Vegas hits this year. So that's going to be, I'm curious to see how
there will be some crowds.
That and just the logistics of getting around outside the hotels is going to be nutty. So we'll see. Let's go. It's going to be an adventure. But I mean, there's so many different classes for AU that are going to be both live streamed and also available on demand after AU. So, I mean, if there's any opportunity, if you guys can make time over the course of AU week, I mean, just still register for the AU virtual events, and you'll be able to attend the live stream sessions, like for the any of the main stage kind of presentations and stuff like that. There are some classes I think that are going to be live streamed, but then again, they're all going to be most classes are going to be available on demand after AU. So you'll just be able to kind of tune in and get the same, at least, content that people in person will be getting. So really great opportunity. And then outside of AU, there are always ways to stay involved and to make sure that your voice is heard. I mean, first is the Civil Infrastructure Public Roadmap that I've talked about a billion times on here.
Wouldn't be a podcast if you didn't tell us about the roadmap.
I know. I'm going to plug the heck out of it. So it's basically up. If you go to blogs.autodesk.com, you'll be able to find it up there. And then again, if you haven't been there yet, this roadmap lets you see what's under consideration for the future, and it lets you vote for and comment on what's most important to you. So if you see something up there that's important to drainage, for example, if that's important to you, you can say, yep, I need that. Here's why. And we read all the feedback. So definitely make your voice heard up there. Otherwise, there's always what we call our infrastructure futures portal that we talked about earlier. And that gives you the real inside track about what's actively under development. And so, I mean, again, if you just go feedback.autodesk.com, you can select that infrastructure futures as an opportunity. And then once you're signed up, actually, you can, you can just join us, and I mean, you'll get opportunity for the beta program and all kinds of good stuff.
Cool. All right. So as always, I am going to give Tim the last word on the show to kind of tell us about something cool that I didn't think to ask, right? So Tim, what else do you want to throw out here for our listeners today that I just don't know about?
I don't have anything in the way of anything dramatically profound to end with. But I mean, again, I'll just ask once again that people just stay engaged with us. I mean, like I mentioned, we absolutely want to hear from our customers about what's important to you, whether it's on the public roadmap, on the forums, or any of the other channels. We read it all and we take it to heart. Again, while I think I mentioned earlier, it's not necessarily practical for us to work on everybody's ideas and solve all the world problems in the products. We do our best to react to our customers' feedback, just at the very least to say, we hear you, I understand it. We have been looking at it from the Autodesk side. It's not like your feedback just goes into a black hole and nobody pays attention to it. It's, again, if I read a lot of it personally, whether it's like the posts on the Civil 3D Ideas forum or the roadmap, or whether there's a feedback section on like the Civil 3D product page on Autodesk.com that I get all the responses from that. And so humans actually read your feedback. So keep it coming, folks.
There you go. And that's great, actually. Well, and I meant what I said earlier. Tim and his group have been really responsive to the public in terms of listening to your info, getting your real world feedback, and making those changes happen as quickly as they can. So yeah, I agree. It's a good place to go. So I tell you what, folks, we're going to get out of here and we're going to let Tim get back to planning out his super secret cool events at AU that he didn't invite Rocco and I to. But that's all right. We'll get him next year. All right. But Tim, I just want to thank you again. You're always a great guest, and we appreciate you always make time for us to be here on the podcast. It's always a pleasure, sir.
Hey, thanks a million for having me, guys. I always appreciate the opportunity to chat with you guys.
All right, everybody. We're going to bounce. We'll catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.